On Tuesday, the 20th of January 2025, a man identified as Mr. Obiozor Sunday Nwaka from Abagana, Anambra State Nigeria, doused his wife, Mrs. Chioma Blessing Nwaka, with petrol and set her ablaze. Mrs. Chioma suffered third-degree burns and was rushed to a medical facility in their vicinity but was pronounced dead the next day. Before giving up the ghost, Mrs. Chioma was captured on camera, lamenting that her marriage was a nightmare, her greatest undoing. If she had known, she would have left for good. This is the gruesome and heartbreaking story of Mrs. Chioma Nwaka, who tragically died after her husband, Mr. Obiozor, set her ablaze. Mr. Obiozor had been married to Mrs. Chioma for over 15 years and they had 5 children, all boys together. Mr. Obiozor was the only son and child of his late parents. Mrs. Chioma was supposed to be not only his wife, but sibling. But the converse was the case. Mrs. Chioma, aged 38, was a very beautiful woman. She was not only beautiful, but the breadwinner of the house. She had a grinding machine which she used to grind maize, beans and other grains for her customers. She used this business to cater for the family. But her efforts weren't enough for her husband, who apparently was a jumpy and annoying man. On that fateful Tuesday morning before the tragedy occurred, Mr. Obiozor was embroiled in a scuffle with his wife, Chioma. According to Mr. Obiozor, the wife was wielding a weapon to harm him before he saw a gallon of petrol and emptied the content on her. On why he burned her to death, Mr. Obiozor lamented that his wife slept outside the home, and out of anger he confronted, doused her with fuel and set her on fire. He said he had been warning her to stop coming back, late, or at least inform him of her whereabouts. But Mrs. Chioma always did otherwise. So that fateful morning, when their boys had gone to school, he attacked his wife, bathed her in fuel and set her ablaze. Anger, they say, lies in the bosom of fools. Mr. Obiozor, while being interrogated by the Commissioner of Women Affairs, Anambra State, Mrs. Obi lamented that it was an evil spirit that possessed him, and thus led him to kill his beloved wife. He kept on repeating, I love my wife so much," pitifully. "You loved your wife, but she's gone for real." When the Women Affairs Commissioner fired back at him, "How can you say you love your wife, but you ended up killing her instead?" He broke down in tears, crying and shattered. But the deed had been done, and Mr. Obiozor won't go impunity. There's no justifiable offense that Mrs. Chioma committed that would warrant her husband to burn her to death. Before her death, Mrs. Chioma was a member of the Redeemed Christian Church of God, where she was the choir master. Reacting to this shocking incident, one of the church members said she was at the hospital with Mrs. Chioma before she died. She said she wasn't aware whether Mrs. Chioma was undergoing problems in her marriage. The eldest son of late Mrs. Chioma, Ibuka, said they had all gone to school before they were informed that their mother was fighting for her life at the hospital. He said the father always quarreled with the mum and had once attacked her with a bottle and a machete. Mrs. Chioma's neighbors described her as a very hard-working woman who suffered so much in the marriage. One of the neighbors said Mrs. Chioma would run her grinding machine, fry plantains, make pap, and did all sorts in order to cater for her 5 children. As early as 4 in the morning, Mrs. Chioma was up, grinding her maize to process her pap. She only stayed in the marriage because of her boys. The neighbor also revealed that Mrs. Chioma was not a promiscuous woman as her husband painted her to be. Rather, Mrs. Chioma had a catering contract to cook and probably didn't tell her husband. She returned late only for her husband to have her frazzled. The Anambra State government has taken up the case and are making plans to ensure the 5 boys Mrs. Chioma left behind are well taken care of. Mr. Obiozor is currently remanded in police custody, and the law would subsequently take its course. The truth here is that domestic violence is the deal-breaker and the bane of most marriages. If you're tired of your spouse, just leave the marriage rather than taking his or her life. Nobody should be afraid of divorce when the marriage or union or civil partnership or whatever relationship isn't working. Simply walk away. There's no shame in leaving to live. No shame whatsoever.
If you feel
I feel so bad.
because I love her so much.
Then can feeling bad bring her back to life?
No.
See, if you are tired of a woman, I think the right thing to do is to send her packing. Or you leave the house. Why? Instead of killing her.
I'm not tired of her.
You're not tired of her, and you had the impetus, the guts to pour fuel on her and leave the lighter. The time you went, it took you to go and get the fuel. You didn't change your mind.
I did not go anywhere.
The time it took you to go and get the lighter didn't equally change your mind.
I didn't go anywhere. Where was already
Violence against women. Do you think what do you want? At least the police, the state to do now. What are you asking the state to do to you?
I love my wife.
No, she's gone. And she's gone for it. No, we want you to tell us what you want.
It's so bad.
No, feeling so bad is not the answer to what I just asked you. What are you expecting now? Can you expect?
Nobody to do.
You do what?
I have to kill myself too.
Give me Jiziki. After killing your wife.
I don't know if she will die.
You don't know, but
I'm going to report myself to the police so that.
At you. Let this be a warning to you watching this video. It's not make believe. This is not a drama. This is a man that burned the wife to death. Today he's crying. So when you don't trust your anger, if possible, don't get married. Just be. Because he knows his faith. He might be in the end. Nobody is even going to give you opportunity to kill yourself. You can't kill yourself. You must suffer for your sin. That's it. And yes, then have you forgotten your children? I heard you're the only child. True or false?
I'm the only child.
And up till now, do you know that none of your relatives has visited these children? You didn't remember their future before carrying out this violence against her. You didn't remember that you don't have mother, father, brother from the same womb. Welcome to the music. You just played for yourself. You're going to dance it and dance it to the fullest. Congratulations for killing your wife.